When workers returned to the long-abandoned quarry, no one thought twice. The site had sat untouched for over 20 years, just rocks, dust, and forgotten equipment. Carl and his excavation team were hired to clear it out and expand the site by over 100 feet. With the housing market booming, the demand for stone had never been higher. Spirits were high, the job was large and promising. By day 3, things changed. Early that morning, the crane operator reported hitting something strange. A metal-on-metal clang echoed through the valley, loud enough to halt all work. Carl and his team rushed over. At the base of the excavation pit was a gleaming shimmer of metal poking out from the ground. Not part of any machine they knew. The crew dug manually around it. It was slow work, but soon a rounded, yellow structure emerged, about 5 feet wide and 6 feet deep. Could be an old safe, someone whispered. Or maybe gold, another joked. But it was no safe. Once unearthed, the object revealed doors. 2 of them. Carl, a former military engineer before becoming a foreman, recognized the layout. It wasn't a container. It was a passage. He stepped inside the strange, hollow structure. It was narrow, about 3 feet wide, with a clear entrance and exit. At the other end, embedded in the dirt wall, was a tunnel. "We're going in," Carl said after a long pause. Flashlights flicked on. The team moved cautiously. The tunnel walls were too precise to be natural, too clean-cut to have been dug without purpose. Dust clung to everything, but beneath it were beams, support structures, and faint colored markings, symbols or warnings perhaps. A loud, chilling cry echoed down the passage. It was inhuman, distant, and deeply unsettling. The crew froze. Lights shook in their hands. One of the younger workers, Mark, panicked and turned back. "I'm not staying here another second." A few followed. Carl let them go. Only 6 remained. As they continued, the tunnel narrowed, beams grew closer together, and strange symbols painted in fading colors lined the supports. Then came the noise again. Less a cry this time, more like a song. Melodic and eerie. Carl hesitated. "Are we doing this?" he asked. No one answered. They pressed on. They passed through a tight opening into a cavernous chamber. Inside was an ancient, hidden room. Walls carved with drawings, rusty tools leaning against stone shelves, and what looked like makeshift sleeping areas. Carl approached one of the tools. A symbol on its side looked oddly familiar, but he couldn't place it. The crew scrambled behind boulders just as a group of elderly men shuffled into view. All wore worn mining clothes, silver hair glinting under oil lanterns. They didn't speak. They simply moved about the chamber, lighting lanterns and adjusting bedding made from carts and crates. Carl's crew stared in disbelief. One of them gasped too loudly. An older man turned toward the noise. "Who's there?" he called out. Carl motioned to stay hidden, but it was too late. The man slowly walked toward their hiding place. Carl signaled and the team took off, sprinting down the tunnel. But just before the first bend, they heard the old man's voice again. "Stop. We mean you no harm." Carl paused. Something in the man's tone felt sincere, not threatening. "Let's go back," he said. "We need answers." Back in the chamber, the elderly man held out a hand. "My name is John." The others watched cautiously. Carl introduced his team and explained how they found the object buried in the quarry. At that, John's eyes filled with tears. The other men slowly stood, listening intently. "After all these years," John murmured. They were miners, once part of a large crew that had worked the site decades ago. One day, a massive earthquake struck, collapsing several tunnels and cutting off their escape. Rescue efforts had failed. Everyone assumed them dead. "We survived," John said, voice trembling. "There were 8 of us left after the collapse. We had food, emergency rations meant for dozens. We stretched it. Beans, rice, and hope. For over 30 years. Carl and his team were stunned. 30 years, underground? The tunnels were unstable. We couldn't dig without risking another collapse. We stayed alive. But we gave up on rescue long ago." Carl told them about the open entrance they'd found. "You don't have to stay here anymore," he said. "We can take you out. Right now." John looked at the others. Some cried. Some just nodded in silence. With Carl's team guiding them, the 8 elderly miners returned to the surface for the first time in over 3 decades. Emergency services took over immediately. They were hospitalized, treated for malnutrition, and monitored closely. The media got hold of the story quickly. Carl and his crew appeared on national news, hailed as heroes. But for them, the real reward wasn't the attention. "We were just here to dig stone," Carl said. "Instead, we uncovered a miracle. The mine was permanently sealed for safety." Months later, the quarry was reopened under new safety guidelines, but now with a plaque and memorial near the entrance. It told the story of the 8 forgotten miners and the team who brought them home. A story that started with dust, rock, and routine, ended with a discovery no one would ever forget.